everyone, how's it going? This is your host Yoshino, and you're listening to episode 117 of ours Decoded. And I'm here on Skype with Tunde Adebimpe of TV on the Radio. In this episode, he talks to painter Kim Dorland. How's it going today?
It's going well, man.
Oh, man. Yeah, tell me about this conversation. It was interesting to listen back to it because it seems like you two geeked out a lot about various artists and both your love for like graphic novels and comics.
Yeah. We definitely geeked out about a lot of things. It was great. It was one of those conversations where you just kind of lose track of the fact that you should probably cut it short because you're recording it.
Oh, no, I loved listening to it. It was very entertaining for me.
Yeah, but we just, I'm trying to go over the bullet points. We talked about growing up in here, because I grew up in Pittsburgh, and he was talking about growing up in various very small towns in Canada, and the towns that the areas we grew up in were fairly similar, sort of like, suburban with some kind of sort of beat down areas, I guess.
Yeah.
But we talked a lot about wandering in the woods, kind of, I guess, as kids, like, in the 80s, and you kind of come across some evidence or remnants of somebody having been in a place that you just happen upon, and I know in Pittsburgh we used to say, like, oh, the burnouts are down there, and the burnouts were, kids who were listening to metal and smoking weed in the woods and drinking in the woods, and you'd get to this little clearing and you'd see beer bottles, cans, like roaches, porn, like rained upon porn magazines.
Yeah.
And you kind of get to this place and you're looking around for a while, that there's definitely the feeling of, like, I should probably get out of here before someone just fight, like, I know I'm definitely not particularly welcome, or perhaps someone would be like, "You like Metallica?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, kind of." And they'd be like, "All right, roll one up." But I doubt it.
Yeah. And I think there's also a pretty interesting nostalgia of that sort of folklore, urban legend type of thing, where it's like you don't go into the woods because someone was murdered there and we heard this happened, and you don't really know if it's true, right?
Yeah, and it's also just having a space that you can actually go to. I don't know. I feel like that's the other thing about digital world now is, and I don't know if we talked about this, but I remember I had I was a friend of mine who made a movie that was pretty much based on somebody being, you weren't able to find them, and they were talking about how if it's way harder to disappear now because everyone has a phone. And he was saying if two people had cell phones in that movie, it would have been over in 15 minutes. And it was really kind of, and it's a movie that, like, you think about it and it's a really good, influential movie, and you think, like, yeah, that would never, you can't do that today because it's, everyone can be found. Same as, being in the woods. It's sort of like you can't really go get lost, purposefully.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, I also wanted to ask you about your show a couple days ago with the Pixies.
Oh yeah,
it was at Madison Square Garden, right?
It's at Madison Square Garden, and it was the Pixies, Weezer, and a band from the UK called Basement. And
very cool. How'd that
go?
It
was great. It was really great. I mean, that's the kind of thing that you're kind of processing it as it happens a little bit, but it was one of those things where if you could get in a time machine and go find your 14-year-old self, it's definitely one of those moments where I would put a hand around that kid's shoulder and be like, "No, dude, you're gonna play with the Pixies and Weezer in Madison Square Garden." Yeah. And my my 15-year-old self would have been like, "Nah, I'm just gonna sit here and cry about some girl who doesn't like me."
Yeah. And read comic books.
And read comic books. Yeah, exactly.
With a similar scenario about what you're crying about.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to sit on the floor and draw Wolverine and wonder why girls don't like me.
That sounds like a relatable topic for most 14-year-olds.
Oh, completely. It's like you haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
What you need to do is find the girl or guy who draws Wolverine as well. So not what I didn't realize that at
Yeah.
the time.
That's awesome, man.
But yeah, it was great. It was a great show. It was really fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for doing this episode and for interviewing Kim. I mean, it
Of
sounded like you
course.
guys had a really good conversation. We were able to connect on many different levels.
Oh yeah, and it's been really good. And he's having a show, he's curating a show, and asked me to put some stuff in it. Canada, and it's just cool. Like we've been kind of going back and forth, and it's always nice to get to know someone whose work you really admire and find a lot of common ground. So it was yeah. Thanks for setting it up. It was rad.
Oh, of course. You know what I actually found really interesting, speaking about that,
Hmm.
is you were talking to him about how, I guess you were both talking about how different artists influence each other.
Hmm.
You're saying something to the effect of, I'm going to send you a painting that I did that is essentially a copy off of one of your paintings.
Oh yeah.
I just found that to be really endearing.
Well, no, it was definitely like heavily influenced by what he's doing. And yeah, I'll tell anybody. Like the Pixies, I remember the first time we played with them a few times, and after I got over the initial sort of like, oh my god, I can't believe we're playing with the Pixies, I started hanging out and talking to them. Like I told them straight up, I was just like, there are 5 or 6 TV on the radio songs. If you want to, I can sit here with you and point to where I ripped you guys off, and I have no shame about it because I love you. And
Yeah.
there it is. It's you shouldn't. I don't know. I feel like it's a good thing to tell people that they've influenced you. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, but I think it takes a pretty mature person, especially like mature in their growth as an artist, to actually be able to admit that. And especially to be able to admit that to someone that they really admire, you know?
But it's also like, I think it's the kind of thing too where you can send that person or show that person like what you thought the influence was, and they can look at it and just be like, I don't know what you were thinking, but I'm glad I'm glad that it's somehow I don't see it, but
Yeah.
if you see it and it helped you make something great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Cool, man.
Man.
I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah,
And
man.
yeah, I guess, yeah, let's talk soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Cool, man.
Absolutely. All right, bud.
All right, buddy.
Bye.
All right. Bye. All right, everyone. Before we begin the episode, please go to our iTunes page and leave us a review. It helps for listeners just like yourself to find out about this podcast. So here it is, episode 117 with Tunde Adebimpe in conversation with Kim Dorland.
Well, nice to meet you. I'm a fan of the band, and now I'm a fan of your artwork as well. So,
Oh, that's so great to hear. Thank you so much, man. I'm a huge, huge, huge fan of all of your work, and thank you for the books. And it's just you see someone's work, and I I like to see work a lot of the time, not knowing much about the artist because it just hits you or like I like when people allow for space in their work for you to insert yourself, or when it's not so directed as to tell you, well, this is what this is this place, this is this time, and I somehow cemented it. And I feel like I don't know, just all of your work, whenever I feel like the paintings with a lot of nature in them. I just always feel like I'm turning a corner and entering a part of this wilderness, or a part of this current timeline or a past timeline of a setting in a neighborhood, or sitting in front of someone. And it's a very visceral feeling. There's not really this there's no wall there. Like when you look at certain things, and I mean, and I guess that's part of the materiality of the work, but also there's just, I really feel like I'm walking into a space or a room, or sometimes just like I'm on mushrooms walking into a really heavy diorama, and I'm like, oh wait, but it seems very familiar. That's the other part of it.
So funny. Everybody who describes, a lot of people who describe my work, there's always this like drug reference. Like there was a book that was done in 2014. I think I sent you one, and they called me Tom Thompson on acid or Emily Carr on acid. It's funny,
but I don't know. As someone who has dabbled, I feel like mushrooms kind of I feel like the mushrooms, if you ingest, or even just the act of, if you look at a mushroom long enough, realizing that there's a network of tiny fibers going around the earth. It's kind of this weird thing where it's like you're touching nerves and they go into
completely.
And it really is. It's a really great feeling to get from
a plant.
Painting.
Oh, I see.
From a plant, yes.
And from painting.
Also from a plant, definitely. Whereas acid, I don't know. I think that Tom Thompson on acid would probably not have made many paintings.
Yeah, I never dabbled that far into things. I'm more of a pot guy myself. But
likewise, that's pretty much my speed. Mostly nowadays, I feel like the psychedelic warrior phase was roughly from 23 to maybe 27.
Yeah. Well, when my kids were born, I was like, I think I'm just going to put that on a shelf. That one's not going to happen for me. And that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Totally fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely fine. Man, so I don't know. I feel like I'm just going to barrage interrogate you.
Well, that's good. I mean,
okay.
I'm just so happy to be talking to you. So it's barrage away, please.
Oh man, absolutely. Okay. I was going to ask about your youth.
Okay.
I just the little that I've gleaned from the books, I kind of sunk into. I have a 2-year-old daughter.
Okay, congratulations.
So, thank you very much, man. Yeah, she's rad. But my weekend was spent. Every time I would get into your book, she would show up and go, "What's that?" And then try to turn the pages and all, and I showed her everything, and she was really psyched. But as a
time, man,
as a result, I kind of and I both whenever doing interviews, like I'm sorry if I go over anything that like you've been asked a million times, but it was just the little I was gleaning from it. You grew up in Alberta?
In Alberta, Canada, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in various shitty small towns in Alberta.
Yeah. And
several of them.
Yeah. You moved around a lot?
Yeah, my mom found it hard to settle down. So we moved quite a bit. So yeah, I'd say I lived in 6 or 7 different small towns, but ultimately my youth was spent in a town called Red Deer.
Okay.
Which is sort of in between Calgary and Edmonton. And basically it's the kind of place you only stop to get gas in between the two cities. It's like,
I got it.
Nothing going on there.
Yeah, I hear you. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and which people always think is Philadelphia. Which when I was growing up, they're like, "Oh, right, Philadelphia." I'm like, "No, it's the other one. It's Pittsburgh. It's on the other side of the rectangle." And basically, no shade to anyone living between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. I have many friends who were doing that, but it was exactly the same. If you were there, it was basically to get gas so you could leave.
Yeah. Oh, and honestly, I remember the day I left. I remember I worked for a summer to make enough money to go. I was coming to go to art school in Vancouver, where I live now, for a bit. And I mean, I just couldn't have left fast enough. Like, it was just the greatest feeling.
Yeah.
And I like now that I'm a little bit older and I have some perspective, I feel kind of badly speaking about it in that way, because I don't mean it to be judgmental. It's just like not.
But you were around what, 17, 18?
Yeah, I think I left when I was 18 or 19.
Yeah, and I really feel like no matter where you're from, there's just something in your head at 17, 18, 19 where you're like, I got to get the fuck out of here immediately. to see what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to jump. I don't even know where I'm going to land. I just know I cannot be here now.
Yeah. And I still have, like, when I go back to see family or something, I have almost a panic reaction when I see there's this one drive. You go from the airport from Calgary to Red Deer, and there's this one corner that you turn. And I feel this like physical anxiety just going into the town. It's just weird.
Oh yeah.
And it's nothing. I mean, I left 25 years ago. Like,
right.
there's nothing the same, but it still feels the same.
Yeah, and just all of that comes flooding back. I feel that a little bit. I haven't been to Pittsburgh that much in the last, like, my most of my family moved out of there maybe a decade ago now, I think. But I still, when I would go back from, I was based in New York for a long time. I'm in California now, but it was the same thing, where I would take a Greyhound bus for 8 hours to get back to Pittsburgh. And there was always, you come through a tunnel and you see the city, and it's like, just suddenly, suddenly you're like, it's high school. I don't know. I don't know where I don't know where I can go. I don't know, like I feel like I need to leave. I need to hide. I got to find my friends who aren't here anymore,
Yeah. Well, for me too, because I was close to my girlfriend, who's now my wife at the time, and I had a few friends, but even now I'm sort of a bit of a loner because it just suits my practice and everything. But my other fear when I'm there is always running into people that I know, but I look so different, and I don't even know if I would. But it's just this weird feeling.
Right, like you're a ghost wandering around.
Yeah, totally.
Seeing what happened after you died.
I mean, it'd probably be harder for you because you're a little more recognizable. You're in the public. So.
Yeah, but what's funny that I found, like, just speaking of aging, and this happened to me maybe probably last month sometime. I got into an Uber to get because in LA now I have to drive, and I reignited my driver's license, but taking Ubers everywhere, some stretches. I got into the car, and the driver was playing a few, I got in and Grizzly Bear was playing, and just a lot of the playlist had a lot of bands that I knew, but that I knew as friends, and I guess contemporaries, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of cracking up. I was like, that's so great that, like, because you never think about it that much, and then you're just like, wow, yeah, there's a whole section of stuff, like, people like this mode of everyone I'm hearing right now is at one point hanging out in a bar, sad and shy about each other, and now
that's crazy.
And this playlist, a TV on the Radio song, came on, Young Liars, and that was from the first EP that we made.
Okay.
And it was 26, 27 was making it, and so I don't listen to our stuff that much. Before we go on tour, I'll listen to some things just so I can remember.
To jog your memory, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. There have been any embarrassing moments on stage. But so the song started playing, and I kind of sat there for a while thinking, like, oh, is this person going to recognize me? Or, and we'd just been talking a little bit before. There was a Neutral Milk Hotel song playing that I liked a lot. And we've been talking about the band, and she didn't know the band. So I started, being the old man and telling her about the band. And then that song came on, and I was just sort of like, oh, is she going to turn around and kind of be like, oh, this is your band? I was like, is it playing because I'm in here? And then it was, 3 minutes in, I was like, she has no idea who I am.
She has no clue.
She has zero clue. And then I thought about it again for a second, and I looked, looked at myself, and I had, my beard was pretty long and unshaven, and there's so much gray in it now. And I was just sort of like, oh, right. Like, even if she did know, I don't look the same as as I do sometimes. It's also remarkable what taking your glasses off and shaving does too, because suddenly you're invisible.
Yeah.
But
that must have been an odd experience, though, to sit there as a consumer of yourself.
So strange.
Yeah.
And also feeling that odd urge, like, that's at the bottom of it, to just be like, hey, this is a pretty good song,
totally.
know this band.
What do you think of this?
Exactly. Want to ask me what I do for a living? Hey, what do you think about that? Think about asking me.
The song is on right now, literally.
Yeah, right now. That's me. That's my work. I didn't get. Thank you for your 0.00003 cents on Spotify. I appreciate it. But it's just thinking about. Even thinking about that, just when you started to, because that EP, before we did that, I had only made things on a 4-track, and I did that just like tape recording, beatboxing, not playing any instruments, really sketchy demo stuff. And I just started doing that. Like, I'm not a trained musician, just because I was working in animation, and I had a friend at the time who was making a lot of DIY indie stuff, and was just like, you should pick up a 4-track and just make stuff, make weird sound collages. It's much more immediate and satisfying than animation, which I agreed with. I was a little kind of burnt out on it.
So much
at the
work.
time.
Yeah.
It really is, and you can get into a very meditative state with it. But I was doing it as a job. I got hired out of I got hired after I was asked to leave school, which much.
Oh, why were you asked to leave school?
Basically because my final project in animation was a stop motion, and I convinced my landlord at the time. Well, I became the superintendent of my building in Brooklyn that I moved into because I was asking the landlord if I could use the basement as a studio. And that was sort of our trade-off, which he definitely got the short end of the stick, because whenever anyone came down to my apartment, my roommate and I were the landlords or the superintendents. Whenever someone came down to complain, we would basically nod and then go back to what we were doing.
Go back to work.
And go back to work. So, but I was down there, and I decided after a point, I stopped going to any other class just because I wanted to finish this thing, and thought, it was like, this is what I'm going to do anyway, so I don't really need to show up anywhere else, which I was wrong about, because because I got called into an office one day, and they said, you've been doing pretty well until now, but you're just kind of, we're going to have to ask you to leave. And I was, I didn't graduate right away, and I hid that. They let me walk in a ceremony, but they basically said, like, you haven't graduated. You're going to have to come back and do like a Spanish course in the summer or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, during graduation, I was sort of like, all right, still don't tell the parents. Just shut up till you get out of here.
Smile.
Smile. You did it. Yeah, everyone did it. But yeah, then after that, I got hired by MTV as one of a bunch of animators on this show, Celebrity Deathmatch. Which is a drag. It was fun at first, real drag at the end. So that's when I started. During that, I was working on comics, and I was doing some animation, but then started doing the 4-track stuff just as a way to work quickly. And that ended up turning into making music with other friends. But it was really kind of I feel like a lot. I think this very long-winded way of kind of asking you when you found, because I feel like music came along for me around 26, 27 is when it started to be something that I was doing often enough that I and was interested enough in, and was inspiring enough that I thought, oh, well, I can try this for a while, and it's not something I plan on doing. But with
that's just shocking to me, like the albums you guys have produced, to hear how it evolved. I mean, it just shows you that sometimes you just don't know what's going to happen in life, because those albums are incredible.
Oh man, thank you.
To hear you, like, I almost want to hear, like, no, it was, I bought a guitar when I was 10, and no, not that one is better than the other, but it's really funny to hear.
Yeah,
it's like such an ambitious band, and to hear that it happened that way. Maybe that's why it worked.
I think it worked that way. And Dave Siddick, who we started the band together, we didn't start off making music, even though he's more of a musician and was more into producing, or knew more about that than I did. We initially started hanging out because we both painted and were selling. This is after the MTV job. I quit and had a little bit of leeway to just kind of get back into what I wanted to work on. And we, started off just painting during the day, and then taking paintings to Soho and sitting on the street, with vendors. Just, watching people ignore us.
We were watching people walk by,
and buy bicycles made out of Coke cans, which are pretty awesome. But also sitting there going, just like, what, really?
Come on!
I need pizza. Just buy one of these. I need some pizza. So we started off doing that, and just kind of, and again, I guess it was this kind of the same deal. Just started making music together. I showed him my 4-track stuff, and we just started hanging out and making music together. In addition to painting, and drinking way too much coffee at night and smoking way too much weed, and just going, and that was our mode. And the thing that turned us into a band, I think, was 9/11, when we decided we didn't want to go outside very much anymore.
Yeah, no kidding.
Especially, and that's when we made that first EP, because it was the feeling, I think, with us and a lot of our friends was sort of like, you have that initial feeling. I think a lot of people who end up becoming any sort of artist in your adolescence, you have the feeling of, there's something pulling me in a direction that I have to go and explore, even if that feeling is brought on just by, any escaping any point on the spectrum of bad feelings. Like if even that feeling is, just general, like adolescent malaise, or you've got a shitty situation at home, or you just have like, an emotional something that's, like the bright light at the end of your tunnel is at some point off. But I feel like after 9/11, everyone was sort of like, we'd better just start living in that, whatever the bright light at the end of the tunnel is right now. And get
I'll never forget that day. I was driving on my way. I was doing my master's degree at York University then.
Okay.
And I remember I was driving to my studio, and I turned the radio on, and I was just listening, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And I just turned my car around. I pulled a U-turn and drove back home. And it's been a long time, but it's still it's one of the most shocking,
just surreal.
I wasn't there. Like, I couldn't imagine. I would stay indoors too.
Yeah. And it's, it really is. I feel like it's the only thing that's happened in our lifetimes, at least, in America, North America, that, feels like a real chapter heading. Where it was sort of like, it was like,
before and after. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
It was like, this is definitely different now. And
everything changed after that.
Yeah. And in one way, it was kind of like, well, welcome to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But in another way, it's just a real chapter heading. But that's when we got really kind of, I guess, more focused, and just, and the longer you do anything, the more, I saw so many friends, bands who were, figuring it out, who, the longer you do something, you go from figuring it out to some sort of, I don't know if sophistication is the word, but you kind of know the architecture of what you're doing, and you kind of go, you know what you're working with, and how you can shape it and mold it.
But these are our beliefs, and totally, I totally get that.
But again, and I'm going to stop talking about myself totally, but I was wondering, when as a kid, what was your exposure to art?
Well, Mike, none. Zero exposure. I mean, my upbringing was pretty rough, and definitely uncultured. I was pretty much a go nowhere kid, and not because I was stupid or even that much of a delinquent. I just, I didn't have a parental structure that was supportive in any way, and so I was kind of flunking at life. I remember in grade 10, I quit school for a year and worked the night shift at a bar. And, that was kind of the trajectory my life was heading in. And then, like, it's a story I've told many times, but, I kind of fell in love with this girl. And my mother actually kicked me out of the house when I was 16 because she decided to move in with this rich boyfriend. And she was like, you're not going to ruin this for me, and gave me 3 days basically to find a place to live. So Lori, my wife's name is Lori. Her family brought me in, and I don't know, from that point on, I started to actually think about, because Lori was really smart and ambitious, and I started to think like, oh, maybe I should actually put some effort into something. And I didn't know what that was. And then I kind of just made like this, I remember it was just a rash decision, frankly. I just was like, you know what? I think I'm going to try to be a painter. And I wasn't Yeah, I mean, I was always driven. But I wasn't good at first. You know, I don't know if you can declare yourself good if you're allowed to or not.
Well, I
I don't
guess you're
know,
just. Well, I guess it was just. Maybe it just wasn't. You weren't seeing what you wanted to see.
No, that came
Initially.
much later.
Okay.
But yeah, that decision happened, and literally, I mean, when you talked about, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel, I think that was my light at the end of the tunnel, or at least my tunnel.
Right.
If
Yeah,
that,
you found
you
the
know,
tunnel.
I found the tunnel to be stuck in for sure. I don't know if I'm even close to the light of that tunnel, but
Right.
you know,
It's not completely dark. You don't know where the
yeah.
light is coming from, but it's not totally dark
Yeah,
anymore.
like there's a pinprick somewhere inside
Yeah.
of all of my studios that are the tunnel. But you know, for better or for worse, that's kind of what I've devoted my life to.
Yeah. And also, I don't know, when I think about what kind of pushes it's always nice to hear that the support or affection of another person, or their kindness, or their example of just have, I don't know, this is I don't know if it's a very poor way to put it, but just someone's example of having their shit together, being a very kind person, and looking at you and seeing things in you that you don't see yourself is a huge thing.
Yeah, I mean it sounds corny for whatever it is, but it's true. I mean,
So
somebody
true.
finally like acted like they liked and loved me, and therefore I was able to kind of take that on and actually make something of myself. Because I hate to think, with the energy I have now and what that energy could have turned into if that didn't happen to me, I'm pretty grateful.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, if I didn't have a conduit, because I mean, my work is not the happiest.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the most like joyful work. So if I didn't have a way to sort of put that out there, yeah, I'd hate to think of what would happen.
Oh yeah. I'm right there with you. I don't know. You know, when you see people kind of lose it sometimes, and you just wish, or even if they have an attitude of dissatisfaction with themselves that reflects as dissatisfaction with the world, and sometimes in a more like violent or like reckless way. I always wish that, I don't know. I have a theory that if a certain, not not everyone. I can't divide things into political parties, but when you see someone who's pushing so hard for themselves and has this gigantic narcissistic urge to control everything, you wish that they just like completed a sculpture in high school and was like, man, that's great, I can do this.
Totally. I should be doing this.
This is great, I can grow something,
running a nation or something. Yeah, totally. Yeah,
no, definitely. But that's so having that, going to you went to art school in at York College, you said?
Yeah, so I did my undergraduate degree here in Vancouver, and then Laurie and I moved to Toronto because Vancouver is, I'm only thinking in Canadian terms at this point. But when it came to painting, Vancouver was not the place to be. It was always more of a photo conceptual town. So, amazing artists like Rodney Graham and Jeff Wall and Ian Wallace, like the best of the best. But there wasn't really any breathing room for painting. And even now, Vancouver is a very small city. Yeah. It's a beautiful city and culturally.
Yeah, I love Vancouver.
It's cool. There. But there's not a lot of space, right? So I knew Toronto was the place we needed to be. So that's where we headed in '98. And then I did my graduate degree at York.
Okay. And when during that time, did you how did you find art school? How did you like it?
Well, I almost wish that I could go now so I wasn't such an oppositional like asshole. Like I was a really angry student. I always had a glower on my face. But I mean, that's, even to this day, it's part of my personality.
Yeah.
Because but it's you're in school, so you're kind of playing life. So I had to amp it up a bit. I don't like. I would say my undergrad was good because I worked with some really good instructors. My master's degree was not terrific because it wasn't really a painting school, but ultimately it doesn't matter. I don't have any of the work that I did from that time. I destroyed
Okay.
it all. And I wouldn't say that my mature work didn't happen until a couple of years after that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it. Is that where you were exposed to Tom Thompson and the group of seven, or did you know about them before you
Well,
had
as a
actually?
Canadian, that's just in our DNA. You just
Okay, got it.
Yeah, your first Soother has a Tom Thompson painting on it. It's funny. I mean, he's so famous here, and that group is so famous here, but they're not terribly well known outside of Canada.
Yeah, I felt, I was reading about it in your book and I was just like, why do I not? I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about there being so much work in the world in the, presently and through the buildup of the past is you're always going to be discovering new things.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I definitely kind of felt like, how did I not know this? And then it hit me. I was like, oh, probably because they're Canadian artists and we don't get any news of that down here, even in school.
Yeah.
But what I saw,
and it makes total sense,
yeah, but the little the show, the You Are Here show, where you were responding or rediscovering or paying, would you say paying homage to that work? I mean, a little bit
to him for sure. I mean, he's always been one of my top 5 artists, and I mean, it was a difficult situation because that museum is, basically made for the group of 7, and it's like a shrine.
Okay.
And I didn't really want to be kind of slotted into that. I could have milked that if I really wanted to, but I kept being resistant to it because I don't, I want to be a painter of my time, first of all.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that comes along with them. There's a lot of baggage. There's a lot of, sort of colonial issues and so on and so forth. So I really just wanted to pay attention to him as a painter. And also we used Emily Carr paintings and a couple of other painters too.
Yeah.
Just to pay attention to the materiality of the paint and to basically give respect to that lineage. And that was kind of it.
Yeah. And I saw the one of the Tom Thompson paintings that was in the book. I just didn't, I think it was from, would it be wrong to say 1916?
Is that
too far back?
I think that might be a little too late. I think he
too
died.
late. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is
oh boy, I'm a bad Canadian. I can't remember.
Oh no. You're fired.
I'm out.
You're totally out. But if he died earlier than that, then it's even more amazing because just the thickness and the sort of freedom with which he laid down. I feel like I gotta find it if I can. The paint on it looked like paint on a pine tree.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was the man of the hour. He would go out into the wilderness. Like I actually canoed out with my family to where he drowned and where he was a guide.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, it is like some scary ass untamed nature up there. Like it's amazing he lived as long as he did.
Yeah.
But he was, he was painting in a canoe. So
that's so nuts.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, should we explain the group of 7 just in case anyone doesn't?
Sure. Well, probably most people. Yeah,
most people. Just in case most people don't know.
So Tom Thompson was a precursor to the group of 7.
Okay.
He was sort of there's almost. I don't want to say spiritual leader, but he was definitely the one that there was a group of painters that decided that they were going to paint Canada in all of its glory. And so he died. Tom Thompson died a tragic death on Canoe Lake, and they sort of formed around that.
Okay.
Yeah, and so for Canada and for the time, they were considered a very avant-garde group of painters. They called it the hot mush painters. I mean, now it looks like it doesn't look anything like that, but for our country at that time, they were as radical can be.
Okay.
And then, they became very accepted and, there became a few honorary members, and
Mm-hmm.
it definitely kind of petered out.
Okay.
Yeah, and they weren't, to be frank, they weren't all good painters.
Right.
There was only 3 or 4 that were actually any good.
And everyone else was just
Yeah, they were part of the group.
Yeah, entourage,
You know.
mostly.
There had to be someone to clean the studios out, I guess.
Were they mostly nature painters?
Yeah, they all. I mean, that was their.
That was the thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, that's all in a certain way. That's kind of what we have up here, right?
Okay.
You know, like I used to show with this gallery in Italy, and he was this really nice man. And he would say, you know, I'm going to come visit you in Canada. I'm like, well, I don't know if you should, because all I can really do is show you nature. Like, we're standing in Rome, and where the alleys have these sculptures from 700 years ago.
Right.
You know, so I said the only thing we can compete with this kind of opulence is nature. So.
Oh, definitely. But I also feel like, I don't know, I feel like someone from Rome would be interested in that nature as well as, you know.
Yeah, but I wouldn't take them around Toronto or something.
Yeah, right.
You know, like, I love Toronto. I love Toronto. Right. It's one of my favorite cities, but it's not like the most, you know, if you're bringing someone who lives in Paris or Italy or something,
sure,
you know, to Rome or something.
You should take them to Winnipeg and December 15th.
Poor Winnipeg.
Winnipeg's heavy. We were stuck in Winnipeg once after playing a show, and it was I kind of liked it, but it was I could see how people could get kind of down in that sort of cold.
Well, that cold is that's
brutal.
You can't even deal with that. No.
Yeah. I think so it just connecting with that and the nature element.
Mm-hmm.
When did you? Well, Simon, I guess okay. I'm just asking, when did you realize? When did you? Would you say that you suddenly became obsessed with painting? Those just scenes in the woods. Did it?
Well, for me, because the other thing that separates me from those painters is that I'm actually not that interested in going into nature and depicting it as it is. I was always,
that's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
You know, nature was always on the fringes. So whatever small town I grew up in is where we went in to go find, like, you know, porno magazines or a deer's head from a poacher.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was always activity going on there.
Yep.
And that's kind of what interested me more. And then, you know, as my style became more mature and my thoughts became more mature, it just seemed like a perfect way to bring bigger or larger issues into my work. It's like a stage set almost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, so like the difference between, you know, in that You Are Here show, you know, and I talked about this at length, like Tom Thompson was literally living, you know, dealing with wolves and chopping his own wood and fish, you know, feeding himself and taking care of himself and making these paintings. And I'm going in with a camera and heading back to my safe studio, because it's no joke that I would be dead.
Yeah.
Almost. I'm not an outdoorsman. Like, and it's funny because, like, in several interviews, I've been asked, like, what it's like to paint from a canoe. And it's like, I can barely stay afloat in a canoe. I'm terrible. You know, my studio, like, I need my airbrush and I need my, you know, I need
sure, you got all your stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, the nature is more like, it's a space where I can think about other things. And some of those things are maybe a comment on how we're treating the planet. That's actually becoming more present. But also this, like, sense of menace and melancholy.
Totally.
So that's, you know, it just sort of worked for me.
Yeah. I feel that a lot, and it does feel you know, as flipping through just looking at paintings in both of the books, and it reminds me, you know, I grew up in a little bit in the city in Pittsburgh, and then we moved to the suburbs when I was pretty young, and you know, most of my friends were, and I'm talking like, I mean, it must have been like 12 or something. You know, we were already the weirdos, you know, running around or just, you know, I guess dorks more than weirdos, you know, like, and going into the woods to have these adventures, you know, and we'd come across these little, clearings, or even just, spots where they were, littered with beer cans.
Mhm.
You'd see cigarette butts and, joint ashes, and the trees would be carved up, with
Yeah.
graffiti. And there are so many, so many works of yours where I just felt like, this is where the burnouts are. We used to say this
Yeah.
is where all the burnouts come to hang out. And then,
Totally.
4 or 5 years later, we built a treehouse down there, which was, it's crazy to me because I think it's even called treehouse or shack. Those two paintings
Yes,
of yours
I've done both.
really looks like, I mean, it looked like this place that we found that was clearly an abandoned, treehouse that someone had built. And, we all started coming down there, and, you find a porno mag, you bring
Yeah.
it to the stack of porno mags
Yeah.
and keep it in this treehouse that's down the hill near the ravine where no parents can ever find you. But just that, the really the feeling in those woods of, we can do whatever we want here.
Yeah.
But these woods are also so wide, we don't know if the kid who got kicked out of school for almost stabbing someone is, behind those trees and looking for someone else to kind of like dispense angry.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's that exact menace that I'm interested in, because you never know. You never know what's just around the corner. And I remember, as a kid outside of Red Deer, or no, sorry, this was another small town I lived in. I remember finding a tree house. Like, I don't know,
Mhm.
it's such a rite of passage. I mean, probably generationally, my kids, for example, probably won't have that experience. You
Right.
know,
And isn't that strange?
it is, and I mean, I don't know if it's a bad thing that they're not going to find porn in the woods.
Exactly. It's
Like, really,
sure.
there's not something I want for them there.
Right.
But it's funny to me that so many people, sort of our age and maybe a little bit older and maybe a little bit younger, can relate to that experience. Not
Yeah.
everybody, but and now though, I don't think those things happen so much anymore.
I don't think so either. I think about that. It's not even now that I have a daughter, but I thought about the amount of unsupervised time
Yeah,
that I feel like, people of our generation had, where it was kind of like, whatever, you got home from school around 3, and then you could go outside and you would get called in at 6 or 7 or something. Or even as you got older, it was sort of just like, but at a very young age, like wandering into the woods with one other friend and walking essentially like a mile and a half into the woods and then coming
yeah.
back, like it's not something that I would think that, people are doing at 12, 13 right now. And
Well, I think, like, just with my children, I have a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old, and
okay.
Lori and I talk all the time about, like, I remember I had a BMX bike and nothing but time,
Yeah.
right? Like, hours and hours. And, like, I lived in some bigger cities too, like Edmonton.
Hmm.
It's not big compared to like an American city, but it's a
Oh
big-ish
yeah,
city.
yeah.
And I just, my mom didn't know where I was, and I just was on my bike with no helmet
Yeah.
all over the place. And my children have never had that freedom because I just don't think it would be safe.
Right.
You
That's
know?
that's the thing. And I mean, we can just talk about this for a second, but do you, I distinctly feel like the ability to get more information about horrible things happening in the world has definitely informed my
Yes.
my recollections of, you're hanging out under an abandoned tennis court that's on pillars, that are rotting, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you're down there, like doing whatever you're doing to hide away from people, and you're just like, no, that thing could fall. If you come across a tent in the wood that looks kind of burnt out, someone's living there,
Yeah.
and like that person is not going to be happy to see you if they show up. All sorts of shit can go
Like,
down.
frankly, I don't know how I managed to survive.
Yeah.
Like, I remember getting hit by cars because I wasn't careful on my bike. I
Yeah.
remember finding needles in an
Yeah.
abandoned park, and playing with them and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's
It's
it's kind of a miracle, actually, in its own way.
yeah. A funny thing that I did see is in the painting. I was kind of trying to attach the paintings to the names in the Same Old Future book.
Okay.
I think it's Shelter.
Yep.
There's kind of a pinup on one of the trees. Is that Shelter, or is it?
That's the one that hung beside Shelter.
Okay,
that one's called Gathering.
Gathering. Okay, I
if
thought
you
it
look
was,
in the deep space there's kind of the shadowy group of kids hanging out there.
Okay, got it. Right. Okay.
It's hard to see
Nice.
in repro though.
Oh, right. I totally see it. Oh my God. That's the other thing. I just have to say that I'd seen a lot of your work on Instagram. I still haven't seen a piece in person. But yeah, when I saw these pictures, the scale is even more like now I have to, because it makes it even more like stepping into the scene is easier and more, I could see it being just overwhelming to be in front of it.
Well, it's the same. Painting is the same as me. It's always you always get something.
Yeah, exactly. You can get something different. Yeah,
completely.
Or more
engaging with them that way.
Yeah. Oh, but the funny thing I was going to say about Gathering, speaking of, having hidden pornography or erotica in the woods, is that picture. I looked at it for a second. I was just like, why does that look familiar? And it's a pinup that is, it's really it's not very detailed.
No.
But it's clearly a woman with her hands raised above her head, is naked in front with a robe on. And I just sat and the pose, it just struck me, and I was like, where have I seen that? And the place that I saw it was in, do you know Chester Brown at all?
No.
He is a Canadian cartoonist who wrote a book called The Play. He's written several books with that company, Drawn and Quarterly. And he wrote a book called The Playboy, which was about his youth, basically, had a melancholy youth. But it was about him, in his adolescence, pretty much the story of him exploring, being the first time you have a crush on a girl, the first, like all of the weird hormonal, the hormonal roller coaster you go through as a youth. And this story, The Playboy, was about how he found a Playboy and then, decided he had to hide it. And then when he was sort of close to old enough, started buying them. And it's just his whole going through the process of analyzing like why he did that as a youth and how it happened. And the magazine that he buries, the centerfold, is that picture.
Is that one. That's amazing.
Yeah, so there's a drawing of it. I'll send you the drawing of it.
Yeah.
But it's hilarious.
He didn't do a comic called Weasel, did he?
He didn't do Weasel. I think that was Dave McKean.
Oh, you're right.
Did Weasel. Yeah. I'm obsessed with cartoonists and Canadian cartoonists. I don't know what's going on up there, but they're all really good. But yeah, it was just funny to me. And I saw that and I was just like, man, something about that picture, I mean, maybe aside from the obvious, resonated with enough
crazy.
Of people in our generation.
Well, I picked that one because it's such a passive and iconic pose.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's just something about that one image that it kind of was perfect for that setting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And that came from a real experience too. I was actually, I've done a number of paintings where there's, porn on the trees. And I remember walking through the woods and just running across that. Somebody had taken a centerfold and stabbed the top through a branch. Yeah. And it was like almost it was like a violent act.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I just felt this, like, I don't think I'm alone here. I don't know what's going on. And I just kind of booked out of there.
Oh yeah. No, that's the right move at that point.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you, and this is like, I'll go into comics a tiny bit. Have you read this comic? I don't know if you're at all into comics, but.
Oh, I am actually. I'm actually, and I kind of want to bring this back to your book that you sent me, because I've been really interested lately in graphic novels, because I'm kind of cooking up this printmaking project. But anyway, I'll talk about that later.
Cool.
So I am actually really interested. So that's anything you can tell me.
I'll
writing
give you
shit down. So
yeah, I'll give you a whole. Have you ever read Black Hole?
I just read that.
Oh,
I literally just finished that thing. That thing was mental.
It's so good.
Yes,
it's so good.
I couldn't believe it.
I mean, aside from the fact that he's a machine, as far
the
as
drawings,
inking, yeah,
like you don't even need the narrative for that. Those drawings are just astounding. And then the actual story, I loved it. I loved the creepiness of it.
So good. And that it really, I'm so glad you read it, because that was another feeling I got when I saw your work. I was like, oh, this is where those guys were in Black
Yeah,
Hole.
totally.
They were dead in these woods, like mutating somehow.
What's so strong about that is that it's like a preposterous thing, but he's written it like it's just this easy kind of narrative, right?
Yeah,
Which is the beauty of graphic novels, actually, is that you can get away with that.
you can get away with so much.
Yeah. Any recommendations? I've just ordered Blankets, and
Oh yeah.
I've always wanted to read that, and The Swamp Thing,
Oh yeah.
and Sabrina. I just finished too, and Beverly.
Oh, that's great. I just read that a few days ago, and it's
excellent.
man, it's really, yeah. It's and all of these, whoever's listening, I forget this Sabrina's author. Is it Drasno?
Yes, you're right.
Is it Dursno or Drasno? I don't know how to pronounce it.
Here I have Beverly right beside my bed. I'm actually laying in bed as I talk to you. So Nick, Drnaso.
Yeah,
He's terrific.
I don't know how. So good.
Yeah,
and but definitely that being able. That's exciting to hear that you're kind of exploring that direction. Yeah, and this is a complete. I guess I'm gonna start to nerd out on materials.
Sure.
How many pieces are you working on at a time? Like large pieces and small pieces?
Generally, like right now, I have a show here in Vancouver in the spring.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And the gallery is really, really huge, and they've decided to give me the whole thing. So I'm doing a massive painting on one side alone, and then a suite of maybe 10 paintings.
Okay.
So, like, for example, right now I have the big one almost done, and I'd say I have maybe 8 to 10 pieces on the go.
Okay.
But I've added another element to my practice in the last year and a half of woodcuts.
Okay.
And it's kind of been nice because it's actually really slowed down my painting practice.
Okay.
Because it's I don't know if you've ever done them before, but it's really difficult.
Yeah.
It's a lot of preparation, which I'm not used to. And then just actually getting the skill together to do the carving is really hard.
Sure.
And then, anyway.
And I guess thinking in negative spaces to kind of like, yeah,
you have to reverse everything and learn different wood grains and stuff. But it's been about a year of sort of getting my skills up to a level that I feel confident with. And now I've been working on 2 really difficult ones because, of course, I'm a sadist. I can't just do a black and white one. I've got to do a 6-color one. That's the one I'm working on right now. So that's slowed down my painting a little bit. So yeah, I'd say 10 paintings at a time.
10 at a time. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at everything. I feel like I'm still kind of flying blind with painting. I don't know if that's
me too.
Great or not.
No,
that's good to hear.
That's how we all feel.
Nice
always.
That's nice to hear.
That never changes.
But the thickness, the way that you're laying down the paint makes me think about drying times. When you say that printmaking slows down your painting process, do you, I mean, this is so technical, but what's the drying time on something that's like that thick?
Well,
or is it still drying as we speak?
It gets a skin. Certain pigments, like if you're using pure cobalt or something like that, that takes, months and months and months.
Okay.
But the way my joke about it is that I don't worry about drying time. I'm worrying about shipping methods.
Yeah.
So,
no, that's kind of,
because they get a skin on them, more quickly than you'd think.
Okay.
But yes, I have paintings that I did a decade ago that are still, if you dug your finger deep enough, it would still be
that's amazing. There's something about feeling, I don't know, it's kind of with any painting, just the idea that like someone was this, you look at it, you're like, this is where the artist was standing, this is what they did with this mark, and you can see everything left behind, but it just like, it's really visceral and organic. I mean, maybe that's obvious to say, but it's just, I don't know. It feels like it's growing. It's a living, growing thing. Really cool.
Well, the fun thing too, and I noticed this not just in my own work, but a lot of people's work, is the beautiful thing about paintings is that they change with time. So, paintings of my own, I guess is the best way to put it, but I'll see paintings that I did 5, 6, 10 years ago, And I love that the thick part that was glossy and beautiful when I presented it, they get dry and crusty and the paint
Mm-hmm.
shrinks. And I think, frankly, I think the paintings get better with time, which is a good thing. I think. I hope.
Yeah, I definitely think so. You kind of let nature work on it too,
Yeah.
and that's kind of yeah. Oh, that's so great. Just realizing after a point, there was some I think of the newer work where I just started realizing you were painting on aluminum and seeing it once I read that, looking back and just thinking like, oh man, is that also there was some where I didn't know if I could exactly see the aluminum exposed, but what I
Mhm.
was thinking was the exposed aluminum
Oh,
just
for
gave it
sure.
this radiance behind it. And when did you, like, how did that occur to you? I don't really know. I guess I just haven't really seen anyone else work on aluminum
Oh, there's some people
like
that.
that with paint.
Yeah, I mean, well, I I kind of go all over the place, and when I do, like, for example, those paintings in the Pink book, the Same Old Future book, those were all done on
Hmm.
unprimed linen.
Okay.
So it often too is about choosing the support that's going to match the intention of the painting. So
Hmm.
there was something in those aluminum paintings. I wanted something really fast and slippery. And do you know
Hmm.
when the Strokes did that first album, This Is It? They said make it sound old, but from the future.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that correct?
I
That quote?
I think so.
Yeah,
That
something like
sounds
that.
yeah, that sounds and that sounds like what they sound like.
Yeah, totally. So that's
Yeah.
exactly what I wanted with those paintings, and so the aluminum just perfectly facilitated that. And they turned into these, like, they're really bizarre because
Yeah.
I always backlit my paintings with fluorescent, but I didn't
Uh-huh.
really need to because the aluminum backlit them in a completely different way.
That's really yeah, and it's so I mean, even in, the 3 inch by 3 inch
Yeah,
Instagram
Instagram,
pictures,
the
it
gram.
really it just blows everything out so much in the it I mean, there's already such a I'm incredibly envious of your sense of depth in all of these paintings. It's the arrangement of flat surfaces with so much depth
Hmm.
inside them is just something that I feel like my perspective button is broken as far as
Oh,
me
amazing.
drawing and painting.
Oh, no, 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 no. But what you're getting, like this, just a quick segue, these sketchbook journals, I am
Uh-huh.
so highly jealous of this kind of.
What?
No, I am. It's something I've always wanted to be able to do, is to do something that is like a diary kind of,
Mm-hmm.
but also has that kind of sensibility that of drawing. I've About 3 or 4 months ago, I started doing this thing I call diary drawings, and
Mm-hmm.
they're little tiny drawings done with Copic marker on this, like, highly absorbent paper,
Mm-hmm.
and they were kind of my sad attempt to do what you've done in these
Okay.
journals.
Right.
And I haven't shown, like, anybody these. Like, they're not,
Okay.
because I did them because I didn't really, and I'm sure you were thinking the same thing. Like, they weren't to show.
Oh no, no, no.
They're personal. They're like trying to articulate something else. So
Yeah, figuring stuff out, or in
yeah,
the case of that book, those are pretty much that's all I could do on the road. That was
yeah,
a real,
yeah. You must
like
have
you were
had big
saying,
swaths of time, right?
oh man, and really just people think being on the road, you're playing a show, that's great, you're living this life. As
Yeah,
somebody who you were saying before that you're a loner, and the melancholy aspect of your personality lends itself to being alone, and also just yeah, you got to be in
yeah,
one place for a long time to get this kind of work done.
yeah,
And that's what was messing with me on the road, where I, at first, the first couple of years, I always carry a sketchbook and with the intention of coming back and, fleshing out ideas. But as the band started to pick up, it slowly became obvious to me that I wasn't, you come back and you're so burnt out that you're not
yeah,
going to get. But it was nice that this I just kind of it's that I'm sure you have a similar thing where sometimes you're kind of like if you're not doodling, you're thinking about it, or your hand's sort of like, I should be doing something right now.
Totally.
And so that's that entire book, you know. And I got asked by that print company, KRX Screen Printing, do you want to do an artist book? And I had all of these things to pick from, and it's nice that they can end up somewhere, you know, and feel like that. But I don't know, the our issues of depth. All I'm going to say is the with or without the aluminum, it's really so awesome. I love it. It's like I can walk into any single one of your paintings, and it's a good feeling. It's a very good feeling for me.
Well,
thank
you.
The
So what were you going to ask me about? I'm always curious about what people think of Instagram, because it's been such a transformative thing for so many people.
Totally. And I feel like the best thing, the top tier, if I had a list of what was great about Instagram, is it's really helped me discover a lot of my favorite visual artists. I feel like it's perfect for that.
Yeah. I agree completely.
Next level is sort of I don't know, you keep slightly informed about what's going on, sort of or at least people's opinions about the world a little bit, you know. But I also, there comes a point where you're also sort of, at least with me, where a few months ago, and I had this month I've tried to put a curb on it. I had sort of a medical operation done, and I haven't been able to do so much, you know. Like I can certainly sit and talk, but I, like, you know, my arm mobility is limited. And like 2 weeks ago, I was just like the dude on painkillers who, you know, had nothing of value to say, but would keep talking. There's a lot of wisdom spouting from my mouth about all sorts of things I can't remember, according to my wife. But it's the sitting there and scrolling through things. It's kind of like all I was doing. But then it was sort of this feeling of just like, I'm programming myself with if it's not looking at a visual artist or something that inspires me. Even music. I don't listen to so much music. I don't get so much from Instagram, but it's just this thing of you can endlessly scroll by and you like things, but it's also, there's something in your brain that, like, you know, that pleasure center.
Yeah. It just keeps feeding it.
Oh yeah. And you just find yourself, like, you know, the moments where, like, I'm not looking at anything. I'm just staring. I'm not watching anything. I'm just staring at this thing and seeing if I'm going to find something new. So that part bums me out. But I do like that I've you know, that I found your work through Instagram. I found a lot of things through Artist Decoded and just the no wave folks and Yoshino. And do you know Reese Lee? Do you know that painter?
Yeah, I do, actually.
Yeah, he's great.
RYS Lee, right?
Yeah,
I do. I follow him, actually. Yeah, he's good.
He's so good. And that was funny. We went and tour. We were playing in Sydney in Australia. And just on a whim, I was sort of like, you know, and we communicated like very, very little. I just was like, if you want to come to the show and bring anyone, that's totally cool. And he came and we got to hang out for just a little while. But, you know, that's
the positive thing about Instagram.
It's so good. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I've actually made a few like very good friends through finding and discovering work on Instagram. I mean,
yeah,
that is good. And especially for the 2D arts, it's not so easy to disseminate paintings into the world. It's way easier now. I mean, compared to like 2005 or 6 when I started showing paintings in New York and stuff. I mean, that was almost unheard of because nobody ever saw your work.
Yeah.
So that I like about it. What bums me out is when you get to the point where you start judging yourself based on somebody. Or,
oh man,
you know, like you're like, well, God, I really loved this painting, but it only got like 700 likes. Like maybe it's not good, and that fucks you up. And especially at my age, like I'm way too old.
I'm saying, man, me too. And it really is this thing where, I mean, it's so gross. But it's so gross. Like that's the thing. You're scrolling and your eyes going to, instead of just thinking, do I like this? And that's it. You're like, how many other people liked it? Which is so gross. It's such a bad idea.
It's such a demented way to judge and be judged, you know?
Yeah.
And this isn't even like, I couldn't imagine like if if my work or my job or my personality was based on my physical appearance or something,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that would
yeah.
mean
Oh,
that would be even worse. I've made a goal this year to post way less and
yeah,
just relax about
yeah.
the whole thing.
Oh, I deleted my whole thing.
Oh, did you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know. I
I thought I
mean,
saw that you had 2 posts.
yeah, yeah. And then if there's something else that comes up, I'll
Yeah.
remove those
Isn't that
posts.
creepy though?
But no, it's weird because it was actually after we got in touch, it was kind of the one time I was just like, oh shit, I wish I hadn't deleted all that stuff because there were a bunch of paintings and drawings on
Oh, that would have
there.
been awesome. See?
Yeah, I can send you some pictures, but
Yeah, that would be
it was,
cool.
but it really was this thing of I just got up one day, and I think it was in that mode of I'm judging, I'm holding what I'm doing up to the work of other people, which isn't, that's terrible, because
Yeah.
if you have a set of friends who are painters or just, whatever, contemporaries, like I remember when I was in New York, it was even music wise, like I never, it wasn't a competition. It
Mhm.
was sort of like there's so few of us doing this
Yeah.
that, I mean, some people were, obviously vocal about being very competitive, but to that, you're sort of like, I don't know. It was, with me, it was comics, and I came from comics and cartooning and all of that. And like, there were some people who were really arrogant about being, graphic novelists. And to me,
Yeah.
that was always like, it's like being arrogant about being a badminton player. Like,
Yeah.
you'd better love it because no one cares
Yeah.
at all, but now, it's that kind of, oh, this got 1,000 likes. And you
Yeah.
never stop to think that, or I started to stop and think about, I don't want to be affected by how many people liked something I
Yeah.
posted. In fact, there are maybe 10 friends who I keep in touch with and are kind of, it's not even like their opinion of what this was, is going to inform how much I like it, but you appreciate that's, you're kind of like, that's someone I know or who I
Yeah.
respect.
Oh no, I always do that. Like
Who's sort of like, it's
you
like they're
scroll
stopping
through and
by.
you're like, oh, they liked it. Okay, no, I respect their opinion, and it's
Yeah.
this weird math.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's bizarre. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like I said, it would have been really great if you had your Instagram account up, because I could have done a year's worth of research in
Sure.
a scroll. I actually ran into a guy yesterday who I don't know, but I know him from Instagram, and I
Yeah.
walked up to him and I'm like, hey, his name's Negative Impact. I'm like, hey, Negative Impact. Like, that's his name to me.
You're
Isn't that
superhero.
so? And he's like, who are you? And I'm like, oh, Kim. And he's like, he like looked through me, and I'm like, Kim Dorland. We follow each other. And he's like, oh, you know what I mean? So then,
Oh man, I know.
so
I've run into people at restaurants. I see someone at a restaurant, and I'm just like, oh hey, and I'm just like, I do not know them
yeah,
and cannot say hello
yeah.
because
We've never met in
that would be
person.
super weird.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
bizarre.
exactly. It's kind of like I just know your superhero name. I'm gonna call you by that. Yeah, but it is bizarre. It's super bizarre. I still don't know how I feel. I guess the way I feel about it now is, if there's something to show or something to kind of say, I'm doing this thing over here live, come out and do it. I think what it was is I just got up one day and looked at it. I was just like, why is all of this stuff here?
Yeah,
do I
why
have
is it
all of
important
here?
to us? Is
Why
the
is it
question.
important? Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's sort of, I also think back to artists or musicians or, just people where you didn't know about them, and the way that you found out was either reading a book about them in depth, or you just never knew. You just saw their work and that was about it. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, it might be we might be romanticizing not having, like, I'm sure my kids won't miss anything because of social media. I worry about the more negative stuff more, but
yeah, no, definitely. I don't. Yeah, that's the deep fear of that.
So
so go ahead.
How long have you been in LA?
Been in LA. It's gonna be 5 years.
Oh wow,
in June, which it doesn't feel like.
And is that because you wanted to do more acting, or?
Well, my wife is an animator, and she got a job out here, and so I just, I've been in New York for like 24 years, and I said we can go. It's fine.
Nice.
It'll be here.
What does she animate for?
Yeah. She was working for this it was Fox had a segment that was kind of trying to compete with Adult Swim, called ADHD. So she was doing some stuff for that, and now she's working. She had an animation job at this place, Giphy, and now she's doing art direction stuff there.
Okay.
Because they were like, we need an art director, and she's like, no one else is doing this, so I'm gonna do it. But she's, always. I'll send you a link to her stuff too.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Which she's a great artist who, I don't know. I always think everyone needs to do more stuff, but life
Yeah.
life shows up. But yeah, it's okay out here. I don't go out that much. But yeah, we moved here, and the band finished a record, and we went on tour for a year, and it came back, and my daughter was born about like a couple months later. And so I was inside. I basically have been inside for 3 years, or not here. So now it feels like I'm just kind of acclimating now.
But, the West Coast is weird. We moved here from Toronto 3.5 years ago, and I still feel like I'm on vacation.
Yeah, right.
Like I don't feel settled at all.
Yeah. Oh, neither do I. I don't feel settled, and I also feel like, are we going to move?
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Yeah, that's how we are too. I think we're moving back east, but
okay,
in about a year, I think. So
yeah. Oh, let me ask you about in the stretch of time that your kids have grown up. How do you? It's weird to ask if it affected your work. I mean, I guess I could ask technically, schedule wise, as far as like, because I've been interested now, and my time has become so compartmentalized,
yes.
Which is great, actually, in a lot of ways.
You're on dad time.
Oh yeah, totally on dad time. You're like, I got, which I don't know. At first I was not. Well, it was basically, you got to become your own disciplinarian, even more so. Where it's, before I realized, I was just like, oh, I was pretty casual about this shit. Even though I got a lot done, it was, on a whim. It was like this like romantic version of just like, oh, maybe I'll be in here for 14 hours today, maybe I'll get a coffee and do something. And now it's sort of like, no,
that doesn't happen anymore.
You got from 10 to 2, and then from about 3 o'clock to 4:30.
Yeah, I mean, I work full on dad hours. I drop the kids off at school, I head to the studio, I pick the kids up from school, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest with you, like, people always joke when they come to my studio that there's like literally not a chair. There's no comforts, like no lounger, no nothing.
Yeah.
And it's because like I've got 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah.
And I've been blessed to be busy. So,
yeah.
So I'm not going to complain about that. But
yeah,
no, you have to execute. No time to dilly-dally.
Yeah. And I know they've been around it their whole lives.
Yeah,
but
they don't
what
care.
Are your,
they do not care at all.
Yeah.
The benefit has been more to me because I've actually been able to get into kid things. Like, I don't know if you know the show Adventure Time with Finn and Jake.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I think it's like the most genius show. One of the best shows ever put onto television.
It's so great.
It's so terrific and so deep.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff has been very influential and amazing.
Yeah.
And they're both artists. Like, I actually listened to your podcast with Yoshino, and you talked about your daughter drawing all the time and stuff. Like, my kids outdraw me 50 drawings to one.
It's so cool to see.
It's amazing. Yeah, they're so creative.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want them to get into the art world because that side of it sucks.
Yeah.
That's the downside of what I do.
Exactly. Yeah.
But they both definitely have the talent for it. So.
Mm-hmm. No, it's so cool. Yeah, I feel like my daughter is the same. She has seen, my wife and I draw since she was born, and she had a huge burst when she was around, I think it was like 10 months old to a year. She just went for it, and then she totally stopped. And we were both kind of, like, I personally was just trying to be like, "That's okay, you don't have to draw." And like inside, I was like, "Oh God, no! She should be drawing all the time." And then she, came home from school like a week ago, and she said, "I'm going to draw a face. I'm going to draw a face," and drew a big circle. And she's like, "There's the eyes, there's the nose, there's the mouth," and then at the bottom of the head, she said, "And there's the feet," and that was it. And I was so psyched, I couldn't even hide it. I was like, I don't know what happened, but I'm glad you're back.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back to the fold.
I mean, they certainly if I travel with a show or something too, there's that opportunity to take them. We went to London,
cool,
and took them to the National Gallery and the Tate and all of that stuff. Like that's really fun.
That's so cool.
They don't care that much.
Yeah,
and I don't blame them. I mean, it's been their, it's not like suddenly I became an artist and it's this new wonderful adventure for the whole family. They just grew up with it.
They're like, that's what Dad does.
Yeah. Me yelling into the sky over my art anger and all of that stuff.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, I wanted to ask you just about portraits too. I don't know. I keep asking you when, but do you find that I don't know. I love taking something and kind of mashing it up to where it's familiar enough, but you can kind of get whoever's coming up to look at it gets I don't know, whatever the feeling of a face or the feeling of a person. And the self-portrait that's in the bigger book that you sent me towards the end. It's really
that really ugly one with the glasses. Yeah, that's
with the shirt, the plaid shirt.
Yeah.
But it's crazy to me because without, and maybe it's the placement in the book, but without looking at it and with only having seen like, a tiny picture of you earlier in the book, like not even really like, taking it that much in, I knew it was you.
Then I did my job.
Yeah, because there's a sensitivity that goes into, in the portraits of your wife. It's just this very, I don't know, again, it's this feeling gets transferred. Even the the ugly painting of you, like a sense of really kind of frenetic punk rock energy behind it, but also like like I looked at that picture and I was just like, oh yeah, man, I've been there.
Yeah.
Sort of like,
totally. I
feel like everything is spilling off of my face and it's being held up by this wedge of a person. Yeah.
Well, it's this weird thing because I have the like literal talent to draw things perfectly. Like if I wanted to, I can paint my wife, for example, and I could make it look just like her.
Sure.
But that bores me. I don't see. There's so many people that can do that. How about making a painting where it looks like her but feels like her too?
Yeah.
And so it was that material buildup that allowed for that to happen. And it came from in 2006. I was my career was sort of just beginning, and I was people were actually buying my work, and I could make a living from my work, and it was the best. Like it was a dream come true. And so I was kind of going into the studio and basically making a painting every day or 2 days. And I said to Lori, I'm like, this is getting a little bit repetitive. What if I just did a big portrait, something, picked a quote unquote boring way to get into a painting, but I just let it go and go and go for months and months and months.
Yeah.
And so the first one is called Her, and it's a painting of Lori on a green background. It weighs like 280 pounds or something. There's so much paint on it. So that's how that came about. And it was this sort of, I don't know, teaching myself to live with something when it doesn't look very good was important.
Yeah.
Because that's, a lot of people don't know that. A lot of students certainly don't know that. They think that these things just materialize.
Yeah.
And they don't. They have to be ugly in some spots and fail. And so that was.
Oh yeah. And I get, when you come up with this sort of a mental blueprint of what failure is, that maybe, and I'm assuming too that you can, you're just kind of like, oh man, I totally fucked that up, and then come back in 2 days and be like, nope, that's fine.
Perfect.
That's perfect. Yeah.
That actually happened to me with my latest Instagram post, back to Instagram. But that painting, I was working on it and I thought I had failed. And so I just drained it in a fury. I just drained black over the whole thing, turned my studio lights off, and just left for the weekend. And I came back, and it was perfect.
The best, yeah.
It was like, I was like, oh my God, this is actually fabulous. So
that's great.
Yeah, it's weird how this all works out.
It's really so now again, like basic retread questions, but who's your I wanted to ask you too. I'm gonna send you this on a list, but this is super quick. Have you heard of this Japanese artist designer named Shinro Ontake?
No, but maybe.
Well, I know it's weird. I found this book. We were on tour. I think it was in Belgium or something. And there's the art bookstores are crazy. So I found this book that's silkscreen cover. This designer artist I'd never heard of, but he's all over the place, and also one of those people who can render something perfectly, but definitely looks like he did that, got bored, and just decided to go extra. But I'll send you some of that stuff.
Okay, I'd love to see.
But who? This is basic. Who are your favorite? I guess not just painters, but artists. Do you think is it always a revolving?
It is like
cast, right?
It is. I mean, I collect art books, and I have way too many for my tiny house. But so I have hundreds of people that I love. But I would say there's a few that I come back to all the time. Definitely Edward Munch.
Yeah.
Definitely Tom Thompson, Van Gogh. I think Peter Doig is wonderful.
Yeah.
He's been a huge influence on my work. But then there's some weirdo painters too. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Charles Birchfield.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a friend of mine introduced me to him, and that is a weirdo painter in the best way.
I feel like like a few years ago, same here. Somebody pointed out his paintings, and it's so also like when did he live?
I think he died in he would have died in like the 70s, 80s, I think.
Okay.
He was a contemporary of Edward Hopper in that kind of social realism school. And then he I don't know if he moved to Buffalo or lived in Buffalo. But yeah, he just made these bizarre, esoteric landscape paintings.
Yeah.
There's a purity to those that I think are just amazing.
Yeah. I just looked at one now called The Four Seasons.
Oh yeah,
which is basically every season.
Yeah, it's
going on in this weird time.
It's madness. I mean, and he was just like this boring guy. He didn't drink, that looks like somebody like doing the speaking of acid again.
Yeah,
but anyway.
No, definitely. It's so great. And also in this painting, I'm seeing the way that that you render light, like in these I think
that comes from him.
Yeah, I just saw this picture and I was like, those huge planks of light coming through the trees, and it really is the feeling in your paintings of like a branch moving away from the sun right over your head, and that's it. It's so
because I'm
so great.
When it comes to influence, I mean, I don't really hide from it. If I find something interesting in an artist, I really believe, and I would hope that if I'm ever an influence to another artist, please just take it, twist it, make it your own.
I'll send you a painting that I completely ripped you off.
Please do. I'd love to see it. That's amazing.
It's ridiculous.
But I mean, in music too, it's the same thing. Like, we aren't living in a white cube where genius just comes to you. We need to hear things and see things and bring them in and then spit them out again. Like, I just hate that whole conversation about influence or originality. There's originality, of course there is, but it doesn't come from a vacuum.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And it's also there's so much to draw from, and I hate when people say remix, but it really is just kind of you can collage anything together, and that it shows up as something that feels new.
Yeah.
If you're, it's also that, it's that, or the Andy Warhol quote that I was always kind of like, I don't know, man. I don't know about Andy Warhol, but just saying like pop art is anything you like.
Yeah.
And I was sort of like, yeah, actually,
That kind of
even, yeah, that makes sense. I'll take that one from you, Warhol.
I feel like he's become quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially since they've started re-showing his work where, he would do all of the Marilyns in a row and then there would just be a red panel because he was trying to reference Barnett Newman. I think that he was actually more painterly than people give him credit for. There's a lot of bullshit around him too, but when he's on, I think he's pretty great.
Yeah, I was talking with a friend about, even just his old illustrations for magazines.
Oh, those were
where I was kind of, and that's the sort of, I guess that's where you go into the whole you get bored and you decide to mash up what you're doing and turn it into something else.
Yeah.
But you see someone at that level of illustration and you're like, oh right, yeah, they got bored, and
his hand was beautiful. What he could with those shoes or dresses or whatever.
Yeah.
He had a really elegant line, and then he just butchered it for us.
Yeah. He's like, here you go. Here's your celebrity culture. Have fun in 2016 when this shit just comes barfing out of everything.
Oh God.
Yeah. Well, I think that may be about. Oh, I was going to ask you too. Do you work in silence or do you listen to music?
Oh no, I'm always
or anything.
100% headphones, full blast. Because I frankly like to not have to think while I work.
Yeah.
Well, like I've tried to do podcasts and stuff, but I never hear them. I always have to rewind them over and over again.
Right.
Yeah. So always music. I'm pretty eclectic. I really like, I'm a kid of the 90s, so I still listen to the OK Computer and Nirvana and there's a really good album called Dear Science that I put on quite a bit.
That's a piece of crap.
Huge Broken Social Scene fan, but I'm also I've been listening to a lot of Earl Sweatshirt lately.
Oh yeah,
I think he's amazing.
That last record is. I love how
incredible
and how compact it was. I was like, why don't people? If you don't have anything more to say, just
like, wrap it up.
Perfect.
Don't do a double album where half of them suck, half of the songs suck.
I'm saying.
And Mike too. I think Mike is amazing.
I don't know Mike.
Yeah, he's from New York and sort of similar to Earl Sweatshirt, I guess.
But, that's cool.
But it's also nice to listen to rap and not hear the word bitch once.
Yeah, that's refreshing.
Yeah, or like how much money someone makes. Like, it feels like such a trope to me, and it feels like someone like Earl Sweatshirt is actually talking about real things. So,
or his actual life, you know, and because it's like any whatever. It's definitely heavy.
Yeah.
In rap and hip hop, but I'm just like, why are you telling me about all your shit?
Yeah, it's so dumb.
I don't own it. I don't own it. I don't.
And at this point, it's not really a novelty that you do. Like we get.
Yeah, exactly.
The lifestyle brings a lot of dough in. That's fine, but maybe there's something else to talk about.
I was saying, now you have the space to like explore your interior.
Yeah, like there's something else could probably be spoken about.
If you're so rich, take a break.
Yeah,
just go do something.
Yeah, but I kind of, I'm also, I really love Sonic Youth. That's a band that I dig into. I go in waves with them because I tend to like the more difficult songs. And then my brain just gets fried. So, I'll listen to Diamond C like 15 times in a row.
And I've done that. Yeah, exactly. And then it's over.
Yeah.
Skip Tracer. I feel like I listened to Skip Tracer for
so good
a summer.
Yeah.
I was like, that's it. That's all we want to be.
Well, because those songs open up over time, right? Like something like Diamond C it's like such a masterpiece.
Yeah.
And but it takes time to unpack that one.
I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, what happened to this band?
Really?
I was kind of like, why is this so mellow and beautiful? And then like maybe 2 months later I was like, because it's mellow and beautiful,
Yeah.
and you can sit here and listen to it, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a perfect painting song.
It was funny because I was looking at some of the paintings and thinking, do you ever listen to Sun O or Earth?
Sun O,
Maybe that's a little too intense to listen to while painting, but I definitely got this. There's a real, like, the underground rumble of death metal.
Oh, yeah. So I listen to like a lot of Norwegian black metal.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, some of that. I mean, come on, the only problem I have, and it's part of the genre, but it's this. I don't want to sound derogatory, but that sound of the voice is sort of so infantile.
The grating.
Yeah,
exactly.
But then the sound of the music is this like sonic. Right. It's like nature.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, definitely, it works. It works really well. But I agree with you. A friend and I used to call it, the angry Cookie Monster.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah. Oh, there's a good guy out of New York I've been listening to. Planning for the Burial or something like that.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of this like melodic black metal, pretty interesting. Oh, cool. And then I just found this album called Black Axis. Have you ever heard of that album? I can't remember. It's like Caspar something Murderer.
No.
Oh, it's pretty great actually. It's this kind of
cool. Let me write these down. What was the last one called?
Planning for Burial, I think it was called.
Okay,
it's the name of the band. And then I can't give you the name of the album, but the cover is like this bleak gray house.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that album a lot. I think that's really great.
Oh, cool. I'm always looking for
me too.
Music recommendations because I don't listen to anything anymore. It's actually weird.
Well, I don't look at paintings that much anymore. I could, if you're in the industry for that long, I can see how it taps you out.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe speaking of industry, and then I don't know how long we're allowed to talk, but I guess we've done an hour and a half now.
Yeah, we've been crushing it.
Okay. Wicked. Yes. Oh, I was gonna say, like, when you began to enter the art world, sort of officially, what was your? Because I feel like, and I don't know about graduate level, but I went to NYU and had a lot of painter friends at Cooper Union and at NYU and just other like art student league, and I felt like the amount of advice that was given about the actual art world was minimal.
Yeah,
and that's because you're focusing on craft and learning, but so I always wondered too, like how the amount of information that you get about the music industry before entering. The information I had was watch out, and I was like, watch out for what? And then no one told you what to watch out for. And then you get into it and you're sort of like, oh, you see the personality, you see how certain things work.
I think that's watch out is a terrific piece of advice for the art world. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's the hardest thing about. I mean, I don't want to be one of those like older guys that's like, oh, the art world used to be like this or that. I mean, it's the fucking Wild West. Like, it changes every day.
Mm-hmm.
There's really great people. I've had some wonderful people in my corner, and I've had some absolute crooks. Mm-hmm. I've had lawyers involved in getting paid. I've had people that tried to manipulate my psyche to the point where it actually had a negative mental effect on me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy. It's a crazy thing. But on the other hand, I still have a fan base. I still get to make paintings for a living. So I can't complain that much.
Exactly. There are always bumps with, like I feel beyond lucky that I've been able to do anything I've been doing for so long and have it be, being able to generate it either by myself or with people I like respect and love, like my bandmates are, they're my family,
Mm-hmm.
But it is, oh man, I mean, I feel like I could just write a miniature book about wrong turns or being, especially early on, just being, somebody kind of gassing you up to a point where you're sort of like this. I mean, with me too, I always, you see people get taken in by a lot of things about, I guess, you're exposed to a larger audience. The people who are exposing you to that larger audience start to tell you that, what you can achieve and like how much you can reap in financially or socially or all of this stuff. And like, I just always, and I think that was the whole coming from cartooning thing, was just being like, I don't believe anyone about anything. Because
now that's another good piece of
like,
advice.
Don't believe anyone.
Don't believe
I think
anyone.
I was, yeah, I think the director, Sam Fuller, like that was his advice to just anyone. He said, it's like, they tell you one thing, don't believe him.
Don't believe
Another
him.
thing, don't believe him.
Yeah.
Just don't believe him. And sort of like, I guess for better or for worse, that can work out. But it is really, because and I mean, spiritual, I guess, is I don't know, is just the word I have for it. But you're taking your art, which is, I guess, spiritual in the sense that it helps you navigate your sort of absurd existence on the planet.
Totally.
Or and gives you a feeling of belonging on a planet where, it's not really trying to make you feel like you belong.
Totally.
It
doesn't want us.
It doesn't want us here, and for good reason.
Yeah.
But but that feeling, you're turning a spiritual thing into a material thing.
Yeah. And then trying to make a living from it too.
I'm saying that's the part that's always that's strange and kind of the mind bender, where you're kind of like, it is work and it's a lot of work and it's a lot of but it doesn't feel like you're like I'm not making bolts for tires, which is it doesn't, which is work.
For me, the big funny thing is that people always have advice for you. People that you work with, that are on the sales side of things. Like in Canada, there's this whole. It's not really the same with my experience of the U.S. because I've done a few shows in the U.S. And in Canada, there's this funny thing about how you make too much work. That you make too much work, you show too much work, and it's like I've never heard that outside of Canada. Number one, and number two, that's the work. That's how I work. I apologize.
Yeah,
I make 30 paintings a year instead of 5, but it's this like piece of advice that everybody wants to give you because it's from their perspective. And it's like I just feel like saying, Van Gogh did 75 paintings in 80 days.
Yeah.
Do you think anybody?
It's what he did.
It just is what it is. That's the process. So that's the kind of stuff that drives me crazy because it's just only business.
Right. And is it just the idea of making something it's more rare, so it's more valuable?
You want to create and the thing is, like, even the artists up here or down there, I'm sure, or anywhere, who quote unquote don't make much work, they still make a lot of work.
Yeah,
it's just how it's perceived.
And how you distribute it, and when you distribute it. Yeah,
it's like this. I mean, I guess it's the same. Ryan Adams, who I like, but he does an album every 3 months. So so I guess there is something to be said about that. But
yeah, there is. It's funny because the two sides of it are, for me, are just like, of course you're going to be working all the time whether you show it or not.
Yeah,
and but then I also think of a segment of there's an episode of The Simpsons. I have no idea what was going on, but Dean Martin popped up suddenly and gave Homer a piece of advice, and Homer said, "Screw you, Dino! You squandered your gift.
You squandered your talent." That's right.
Yeah, and he said, Dean Martin says, "Squandered my gift. I made 99 albums."
Oh God!
There you go. But I don't really. If you're gonna, I feel like most of the artists I know you're gonna keep going whether you
just do
whether you show it or not. Yeah.
Maybe that's just me complaining because that's something I've been through lately. But anyway.
Well, no, I mean to me that's ridiculous. I don't know
completely.
I don't know how that's. It definitely is someone who. That's the other thing too. You're getting a lot of advice from people who don't do what you do.
Yeah, exactly. They have no idea.
Which is not at all to sound arrogant, but it's taken me not a long time, but there was a point where halfway into this, we were getting some advice about stuff or how, I think the thing that happened to me was when the band started getting, and group situations are different too, because everyone will want something different out of a situation. But just for me as, one of the I don't know, I'm not the primary songwriter of the band, but like this as one of the, I guess, one of the songwriters of the band, was that I wasn't, churning stuff out.
Oh yeah.
And I was sort of like, there's gonna be a bunch of it, but like I can't just churn it out.
Yeah.
It has to be something I want people to hear. But it was definitely there was some label stuff of just kind of like, and I had other friends too who were in bands, and I heard label people calling them lazy because because they weren't putting out a record every 3 months, and it's just kind of like, they're not.
But it always,
lazy. I don't know.
No matter what it is, though, like we're both saying exactly the same thing. It's advice from people who literally have no clue how the process works. They see it as little trinkets to pass out or something like that.
And exactly.
It's just so weird. But
and like there's situations where you realize that you're just kind of a cool pin to put on someone's lapel. Oh yeah. And they're not really like thinking about it that much. Yeah. But again, at the bottom of it, like warts and all, I feel like it's a really lucky thing to be able to make art and process your get to have the luxury of being able to organize your feelings and brain and put something out that is it's you, but it's also of value to someone else. Just
that's the thing. I don't know. Did you watch the Grammys the other night?
No. I kind of, I don't know. I felt weird about it.
Yeah. Well, I watched it. I actually, that's the first time in probably 10 years that I've watched it. Uh-huh. But of all people, Drake actually had a really good speech. He talked about how, I think he was trying to he was not very elegantly, but he was trying to make the point that basically Grammys don't matter because it's not a popularity contest. And he was saying, if you're a hero in your hometown, or if people connect with your work, then you've already won. And I mean, it sounds a bit whatever, but it's actually the truth.
Yeah, because no one has to care. That's the other thing.
Yeah, totally.
Like that's at all. Like,
I could be on the street yelling about how no one understands me, but
oh my god,
some people do. I think.
I think I feel like we'd be on the same street.
Yeah, yelling at each other from a distance. Yelling at each
other. What's happening?
No one's paying attention to me.
Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of sage words from Drake. I believe that definitely.
Yeah. It was actually pretty good.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I think that's all I got to grill you about presently. I'm sure that I'll email you annoying questions.
Oh, please do. We should keep up the convo for sure.
Definitely, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like huge respect in so many ways. Like the art too. Like just loving it.
Thank you so much, man.
Like just really great stuff.
Thank you. That definitely, it means a ton coming from you. I super appreciate it.
Well, same right back at you. Pleasure to talk to you.
Pleasure, man. Yeah. I'll send you a bunch of stuff. I'll send you a bunch of lists of good stuff to check